Hi there. It's an exciting day in the world of GMAT or GMAT preparation. Ever since the GMAT Focus Percentiles came out, it was somewhere in September of last year, there's always this speculation, what's going to happen with these percentiles, because that percentile scale was completely different from the classic scale that we were used to. And there was a lot of speculation that these percentiles will change. Now today, we have the updated percentile scale. And this is after about 40 to 50,000 test takers have taken the test. That's kind of my estimate overall. And we now know, have a definitive answer to, is this scale going to change? So let's kind of look at this and really just say, hey, answer this question. GMAT Focus Percentiles, will they change? So let me just talk about, in short, if you want to just know this, GMAT Focus Percentiles, as the GMAC had predicted, are very similar to what they were. There's not a huge change on them. A 705 is a 98 percentile versus a 99 percentile. There's about a 0.4 percentile change. A 735 is still a 100 percentile, and a 645 is still something that maps to the old 700. But let's kind of look into the details and see what this means for you. What does it mean for the median scores at top B schools, and how should you look at this change? So let's talk about this. So these are the before and after scores here, and as you can really see, earlier 735 used to be 100 percentile. Well, let me just look at this over here, and it still is 100 percentile right now. So there's absolutely no change over here. The GMAC got this absolutely correct. 705, which used to be a 99 percentile, is now a 98. In fact, if you look into the details, I'm going to show you the details in a bit, you're going to find that that delta is about a 0.4 percentile. So it's not a huge change, but because of the rounding piece, currently 705 is a 98.2 versus a 98.6. So it's no longer a 99th, it's now a 98 percentile. A 645, very similarly, is an 88 percentile now. Remember, this is now over here, this column, versus an 89 percentile. Again, it still maps to a 700 on the classical GMAT. The biggest change perhaps is where at a 605, which is a 72nd percentile as of now, versus a 75th percentile. So again, not many of you are aiming for that 605 score, but if you were, that's kind of the only place where you have about a 2 to 3 percentile point change overall. Okay, so let's kind of talk about the mapping over here, and this is what we call as the concordance table. But before that, I want to show you the scale. To see the scale, here is MBA.com. You can go to MBA.com, and I'm going to move this over here, and you can see this is the new page over there. And they very clearly say, hey, 645 is the new 700 here, and here is that percentile scale. This is a detailed scale. You can see how 715 is the 99 percentile, 705 is 98, 695 is also 98 right now, 685 is 96. So there's some change over here. This used to be 97th here. 675 is 95th. This used to be 96. So there's a slight movement here, but not a whole lot. And considering the fact that when the current scale was released, or the older scale was released, we only had a couple of thousand data points. Now we've about 40 to 50,000 data points. I think the accuracy of prediction, in my opinion, is phenomenal. It's really, really accurate here. 645, as you can really see now, in this case over here, is at 88 percentile over here. So let's look at a few other things. In terms of mapping, score mapping, then this is something which is important here. A 700 on the GCE before, actually, so it should say 7. This is wrong over here. Before it used to correspond to a 645. Now it also corresponds to a 645 here. If you have a GC score of 750, it used to correspond to a 695. Now it corresponds to a 695 and a 705. I'm going to show you that. And then 760, it used to correspond to a 705. Now it's a 715. So that's kind of, I think, the big change over here. If you thought you had a 750 and you said, oh, that's a 760 equivalent on the older one, that's kind of where the only mind shift changes. That's kind of a slight bummer. That's a 750 equivalent for you. A 770 or higher goes to that 735 scale or higher. So there's really neat mapping over here. Before, there was not a whole lot. I mean, there was something, but I don't think the GMAC had given a whole lot of thought to this in this case. So let me show you where you can find this concordance table on MBA.com, because it's not as easy to find. So to do that, let's go back to our MBA.com. percentile page. Again, make sure you do the detail piece over here to get everything. You can do data insights, verbal and quant. As you do that, you can see all of those percentiles. So to find the concordance table, you just click here and you'll be able to see the new concordance table. You see the reason, what you got to look for is the month and the year. And here you can really see 700 is the new 645, or 645 is the new 700. 655 maps to a 710, 665 also maps to a 710. This is where you see 695 maps to a 740 as well as a 750, and then a 705 maps to a 750 as well. And 760 starts at a 715 right now. This wasn't the case earlier. You can also see these percentile points here, where a 705 is now 98.2. So let me just move to this. So I have this old concordance table. You can see this is from January 2024 here. Here you can see a 645 again maps to a 700. The percentile points are slightly different here, but a 705 maps to almost a 99 percentile in this case, a 98.6. It used to be a 99 percentile here. The 760 still mapped to a 715 in that case as well. But so honestly, there isn't a whole lot of change. This used to be 98.6. It's now 98.2. You have a 0.4 percentile point change over here. Okay. So again, some changes here. So 760, we used to say 99 to 705, so which means it should map to a 760. They used to still say in that concordance table 715 and 760 at concordance, but in our minds we always had that 705 here. But now you can really say the clear cut 715 is a 760, and I don't think that's going to move. Now, one thing that's really important to know is what's driving this change, and this is something which is absolutely critical. Why? Because in the past, if you look at the last decade, since 2012, the primary force driving this change is the change in quant percentiles, and they've been actually becoming stronger and stronger, where a Q50 that used to be 95th percentile when I took the test, now actually went down to 87 percentiles. So it was the percentiles were more and more people were scoring a Q50 overall. This time, and for me, one of the most encouraging things is quant percentiles that were released in January. They haven't changed at all. Whatever slight change has come, it's come because of verbal percentiles and data insights. And that's kind of where also at the higher end, where verbal percentiles have moved slightly. A few more people are doing well, most likely because sentence correction has been taken out. There are more non-natives now, so they're doing better in CR and RC over there. So there's a 1 percentile change where a V87 used to be V86, 87 used to be a 98, 99 percentile. Now it's a 97, 98 percentile. So there's a slight change over there. Same thing with data insights. We see a slight change here, but not a whole lot, which is why we don't see a change. I think the biggest takeaway from me is quants remain stable, which was the biggest worry that I had, because typically the GMAC's done a really good job with regards to verbal, and it seems they're doing just as good a job with regards to data insights here. Okay. Now, what does it mean when it comes to admissions over here? So if I have this table over here, I'm going to reduce the size of my video so you can see this. If you're aiming for top schools, the classic score, the classic median or mean score, and they're usually slightly different, used to be for HBS and Stanford a 740. On the focus side, I'd recommend that you aim for a 685. That's kind of if you want that GMAT score to actually put you right in that median or mean range. Now, if you want that GMAT score to push your candidacy where you're aiming for scholarships, I'd recommend aiming for a score of 715 or higher. Now, this assumes that you have a reasonable profile and reasonable in the context of these schools. If you're looking at the other M7, Wharton, Kellogg, Booth, Sloan, or Columbia, the median or mean was around that 730 mark. I expect that to be again around that 685, 695 mark. Well, 685 mark over here. And then, but that number for scholarship is 705. It's slightly lower, not a whole lot. The other T20, so outside of HBS, Stanford, and the other the remaining M7s, I'd say 675 is a good median safe score for you. If you have an excellent profile and you want that score to not be a disadvantage, the score to really show that you have what it takes to take on the coursework at these schools. But if you're aiming for a scholarship, I'd still recommend aiming for a 705 or higher. Now, you could get a scholarship with a lower score if your profile is that much there, but in that case, you're going to get a scholarship because of your profile, and not because of your score. A 705 would mean that if you have an excellent GMAT score, which is a 705 or higher, and you have a good profile, that's where your GMAT score is going to drive that scholarship piece here. And again, remember these top schools have a ton of money, upwards of $400 million annually to give out a scholarship kitty. And in T21 to T30, again, that mean median score is around that 690, 700 on the classic. Aim for that 645, 655 mark. And again, a 685 or higher should position you really well on a scholarship. If you have a 705 or higher, you might even get a full ride. And we've had many students who've gotten a full ride at that score or so. So what does this mean for you? So we've been talking about these percentiles changing for a very long time, and now we know that these percentiles are not going to change. So this, I think, is better. You can see me in the frame. It's not going to change a whole lot. There's been a slight change. Yes, that 99 percentile has moved from that from that 705 to a 715, but not a whole lot. The change primarily driven by verbal NDI, and I think it's really important to acknowledge that building a new percentile scale is not easy, and the level of precision that the GMAC folks such as Chris Han and his team have done, that's phenomenal. So that's something that I recommend that we acknowledge that, and with now we have a really good idea as to what scores you should aim for if you're aiming for scholarships, if you're aiming for that GMAT score to push for scholarships overall. And with that certainty, if you are at that 675 or a 685 and you're applying to a top school, and if you want a scholarship, I'd recommend apply with that. It's round one, but then take the GMAT again, go for that higher score, so that it not only positions your candidacy a lot better, but it also pushes you to get that scholarship. With that, as I always say, happy learning.